Hey everybody, this is Matt with mathsmath.com. Thanks for joining us as we talk about how to convert with different units. So we're going to talk about how to convert standard units to, say, customary. So thinking about how do you convert a centimeter to an inch and so forth. Okay, that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're in the Common Core standard of ratios and proportions. We're going to be analyzing and using those proportions to solve real-world problems today, especially having to do with units. Our guiding question is, how do we convert between customary and metric units? So if you think about it, we got inches and we need to convert it to centimeters. Well, in the past you've done inches to feet and centimeters to meters and so forth, but today we're going to learn how to go in between the customary and metric units. All right, so that's our title today of our lesson. If you hadn't heard about the Mars orbiter crash back in 1999, pretty crazy event. One of the things that had happened is that the guys that were running the orbiter really made a mistake as they were measuring the landing of this orbiter. You see, some of the engineers were using centimeters and meters. They were using the metric system, while some of the other guys were using the customary measurement. So some of the guys were talking about feet, while the other guys were talking about meters. And if you could only imagine, if you've ever got a meter stick and a yardstick and put them together and the difference that they can make. Now, it might not seem like much, but man, when you put it together, it's something, the millions of dollars that the orbiter has cost. It lands, crash landing. Didn't actually land because of the fact that some of the guys were using feet, while some of the other ones were using meters. Didn't work out so well. So it's really, really important when we look at units that we're talking about the same unit together. Okay, so can cost you big time if you aren't converting between the two types of units. So let's do that. All right, well, it's easy to convert inches to feet. You guys all should know that there's 12 inches in a foot, but it's much more difficult to talk about how many miles are there in a certain amount of kilometers. Now, if you're a runner, you might pick that up real quick because you might know that a 10K is a certain amount of miles. But if you're not familiar with these, let's figure out how to do that. It becomes much more difficult though. Here we got 1 foot is 12 inches. Well, we got 4 feet. How many inches is that? That's super simple, right? But what about something like this? We've got, 5 inches. How many centimeters is it? Well, each inch is about 2.5 centimeters, 2.54 centimeters. And you got 5 inches. How many centimeters is that? Totally different. But you know what? Not much more difficult than we've looked at in the past, because all you're doing, notice what this is? It's just a proportion. Cross multiply and divide, and you're good to go. All right, well, when we convert between these two systems, we use what's called a conversion rate. Okay, a conversion rate is just a ratio that compares two different units. You got to make sure that the denominator or the numerator is 1. So if you're comparing it, it's got to be 1 inch to a certain amount of centimeters, or 1 centimeter to a certain amount of inches. Okay? Then one or the other units has got to be 1. Kind of like a unit rate, right? Remember looking at in the past? All right, so let's do an example problem. Well, here we know that 1 inch is about 2.5 centimeters. If that's the case, how much is 5 inches? Well, we've done our proportion here. We've written it and we've set it up. Now, how do we get rid of 5? We don't want x divided by 5 inches. We want to multiply by 5 inches. Multiply by 5 inches over there. 5's cancel. So do the inches also. The units cancel there. And notice that over here the units cancel as well. We've got inches on top and inches on bottom. So the only unit left over here is centimeters. We continue to multiply. It's 5 inches times 2.5. Now notice it's only 5 times this guy. It's not 5 times the 1. Because what essentially underneath the 5 but a 1. Okay, units cancel too. All we're left with is centimeters, and you get about 12 7/10 centimeters. 5 times 2.54 gives you 12.7. And that's it. Not really much different, from the past, using proportions. Again, hint there, just cross multiply and divide. 5 times 2.54, divide by 1. Well, that's easy, all right? Don't forget to cancel units, all right? When you cross multiply, you do have to divide by that other leftover number. Typically it's 1, but it might not matter. Now, this is what you're going to need to know. You're going to need to write this down. Here is the conversion from customary to metric. 1 inch is about 2.5 centimeters, 1 mile is about 1.6 kilometers, 1 quart's just a little under 1 liter, and 1 pound is about 1/2 kilogram. You're going to want to write these down because these are going to be the first part of your conversion proportions. This will be the first fraction, or this, or this, or this, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to convert pounds to kilograms, this will be your first fraction. This will be your on top. This will be on bottom. If you're trying to do kilograms to pounds, you can use the same thing. Just depends on how you set it up, okay? So let's convert these measurements. We got 10 miles. How many kilometers? All right, well, first thing you gotta do is set up your playing field. You have the two fractions. We got the fraction on the left equals the other fraction on the right. Now, like I said before, that conversion rate chart that I just showed you, you always put that on the first fraction on the left. If we're dealing with miles and kilometers, just put the miles and kilometer one right there in the beginning. Okay, set up your conversion rate first. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers, and that's it. Now, you gotta fill in here as needed. Well, miles is on top, so miles has got to be on top, kilometers on bottom there. Place what you know what's next in the right spot on the other side. So you got 10 miles over x kilometers. And then what? It's a proportion like normal. How do you go from x to 1.6? How do you go from 10 to 1? Cross multiply, divide, you get your answer. Why don't you try setting this one up? Remember, use your proportions. Okay, set the conversion rate first. We're dealing with kilograms and pounds. I'm going to put 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. Now set the right side up. Place what you know where they go with the correct units on top. Pounds on top, kilograms on bottom. Cross multiply and divide. You're good to go. All right. Now, let's talk about this one. This one's a little interesting because we're talking about is 3 kilograms less than, greater than, or equal to 100 ounces. Now, we don't have a kilograms to ounces, do we? But we do have kilograms to pounds. So how do you convert 100 ounces to pounds? You just divide by 16, right? Okay, first we have to make it ounces to pounds. 16 ounces is 1 pound. Use the conversion rate then of 1 pound to 0.45 kilograms. So this now is our conversion rate. 16 over 1 pound over 0.45 kilograms. And that equals x kilograms over 100 ounces. So we're going to turn this into kilograms. We could have turned this into ounces if we wanted, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier to take the ounces and turn it into kilograms. So notice you have pounds on top, pounds on bottom. We're going to cross those out. We'll end up with 16 divided by 0.45. We cross multiply, divide, and then you can tell me if 3 kilograms is less than or greater than or equal to 100 ounces. Right, notice the units alternate from the top to bottom, unlike before, just because we're dealing with a different conversion rate. We are setting up the problem here, but we do have pounds on top and pounds on bottom, and those do cancel. We do have the kilograms on bottom and the ounces on top. They do rotate. All right, they cancel the tops and the bottom, then multiply to find out how many kilograms there are in 100 ounces, and compare that to 3 kilograms. Ounces cancel, pounds cancels, and so do the kilograms. Okay. It was greater than, because you must convert it to ounces, to pounds first. And you'll get that 3 kilograms is more than 100 ounces. All right, well, that's it for today as we talked about converting with different units. Thanks for joining us as we really learned a lot about, how to do something a little different compared to just centimeters to kilometers. Now you have the power to convert inches to centimeters. All right, well, this is Matt with mathsmath.com. Thanks for joining us. Check us out on Facebook at Solving Math Problems. We're on Twitter at Maths Math. And enjoy math.